Now that brings us to the drafting / team building woes that this team has gone through. Brother, if you go back to 2016, it's hard to be this bad on purpose. They have 6 players, 6 that are notable from 2016 to 2021. Max Crosby, Colton Miller, Malcolm Kuntz, Trayvon Merrick, Divine Diablo, Nate Hobbs. That's it. 5 whole draft classes, and you got 6 players. 4 of their former first-round picks from 2016 to 2021 in that range aren't even in the league anymore. From the 2016 and 2017 drafts, the only players that are still in the NFL. Sorry, when I said players, that was giving them too much credit. It's player. It's one. From the 2016 and 2017 drafts, there is one player that they drafted that is still in the NFL. It's Jihad Ward. And they happened to trade him 2 years after they drafted him in 2018. So he hasn't even been on the team. The draft failure of this organization, it is hard to do on purpose. Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. Trevor, Sikkema, Connor Rogers here with you guys for a joyous time. Unless you're a Raiders fan. Unless maybe this is the joyous time.
This might be it. Yeah.
Fix Your Franchise is back, baby. We've never been more back. It's everybody's favorite series that we have here on this channel. It's where we take a deep dive into your franchise, which we think is, on the scale of 1 to cheeks, pretty cheeks. And we're going to fix them. We're going to go through everything. We're going to tell you exactly how they got here. We're going to talk about the coaching staff, some coaching changes we think might happen, some potential replacements. We're going to look at their salary cap, the roster construction, the lineup, the draft history. We're going to do a 3-round mock draft for you. We're going to do a full free agency simulation. This is it right here. We are going to truly take the title of this episode literally and fix your franchise, starting here with the Las Vegas Raiders. Connor, how you doing, my friend? You ready for the journey?
I'm a big fan of the scale 1 to cheeks. That's the good stuff right there.
I probably should have gone from cheeks to 10.
That's why I was laughing at that. It still works. It's just a matter of like, hey, how do we decide who we fix first? Well, the cheeks scale. Panthers, you were close, Panthers. You were real close. Honestly, when we were talking about this a week ago, the main reason why we did the Raiders first is because we opened with the Panthers last year, and we just didn't have it in us to do that again. Right. It's just not. I think they'll get there eventually, but yeah, and I feel like Raiders fans have wanted this. They are a really interesting team. I mean, the roster has its issues, but I don't know. The Raiders it feels like they should be better than they are, but they have nothing at quarterback right now. They have some questions on defense. They don't really have an identity. We're going to get into everything, how they got here, where they need to go, what hires need to be made or what hires don't need to be made. And the best part of it is doing these early team mock drafts. We have so much fun taking a look at early mock drafts, rounds 1 through 3, when we fix these teams.
Yeah, and the Raiders specifically are a fun one here because as we go throughout this exercise, we're going to talk about, okay, are there players on the team that we want to trade for draft picks? We know that already they traded Devontae Adams, so they have an additional 3rd-round pick, which can become an additional, which it can become a 2nd-round pick if Devontae Adams is an all-pro. Not sure what we're going to get here at this point in the season, but I think But so it's a 3-round mock draft, though. It's a 3-round Raiders-centric mock draft, so at least they have that extra 3rd-round pick, which makes it all the more fun. This is a team that is a top 5 team in the NFL when it comes to projected salary cap space. So there's a lot of flexibility here. But Connor, overall, this is just a incredibly layered and unique story about how we got here with the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think that that's where we start things, right? We've got to go back to how we got here for the Raiders. And they're sitting here at 2-5 this season. Antonio Pierce is their head coach, but I think really to talk about how we want to fix the Las Vegas Raiders, we have to go back to how they exactly got to this spot. And for me, that starts all the way back for the John Gruden era. I would say probably a little bit before. We're going to talk about some of the draft woes for this team, but it's at least in the Gruden area because when you look at this team, they hired John Gruden in 2018. They go 4-12 in that year. I think that was the year that they ended up, they traded Khalil Mack away. I think they traded Amari Cooper not long after that. And they went 4-12 that first season with Gruden as head coach. They went 7-9 with Gruden as the head coach after that. They went 8-8 in his third year. And then we get to that 2021 season. And this is where stuff really starts to go off the rails in terms of the front office and the coaching staff. They start the year 3-0 that year. Then they lose the next two. Then Gruden ends up resigning because of the whole investigation with the Washington football team and the emails that came out. And it looked like, okay, well, there were these allegations of misogynistic and racist and homophobic slurs that he said within these emails, even talking about Roderick Dell in them. And it was kind of all just, hearsay. It was like, oh, these are in here, but nobody really had any proof. Then when the stuff actually came out, it was too much to deny. So Gruden ends up resigning. Rich Bisaccia takes over. They end up making the playoffs that year, but getting bounced in the first round. So they don't hire Rich Bisaccia. Then they go after Josh McDaniels, but it's not just Josh McDaniels. They tried to bring in the Patriot way, right? They brought in Dave Ziegler to be their general manager. Him and McDaniels basically only last 1 year because the first year that they were there, they go 6-11. All right, admittedly not great, but okay, you're coming off a tumultuous time. There's been a lot of stuff that's going on. You didn't exactly, the Gruden stuff kind of came out of nowhere for this team. So all right, 6-11, not bad. Then you go into the next week and they start that next year in 2022, they start that 3-5. You had the crazy game where McDaniels ends up kicking a field goal with like 2 minutes left in the game, down 8. And after the game, he said that it was a 2-possession game. They're like 8 points was a 2-possession game. And it's like, okay, not only do the vibes feel wrong, like you don't know what you're doing. Like you don't even understand like how things are going on. So they end up firing McDaniels after just a year and 8 games, a year and 8 games. They end up moving on from him. They move on from Dave Ziegler as well. The whole Patriot way thing, it never works outside of Bill Belichick being on the Patriots and being the brainchild there. And so the vibes of that team, it felt like were terrible. Horrific. And so the interim, the all vibes interim hire was linebacker coach Antonio Pierce, who was beloved by the defense. The defense was playing well last year. There were some metrics where the Raiders were top 10 in the NFL in certain areas of their defense. And so we get to the end of the offseason. They end up hiring Antonio Pierce. And, Josh Jacobs no longer there. We'll get to that in a second. Derek Carr obviously wasn't there from a couple of years before. They're sitting there with the number 13 overall pick in the draft because they sort of overachieved down the stretch. And they sit there in the draft and they let 6 quarterbacks go. They don't get a quarterback. They have to stick with Gardner Minshew. And here we are. They're 2-5. Antonio Pierce is at this point in time still their head coach, but it just feels as though that might also be another one and done for this team, which is just way too many in a row and too much turmoil. They need to find some stability. But Connor, really since that last year of John Gruden, it has been, I want to say, a roller coaster for this team. But to be honest, it's basically just the Tower of Terror free falling at the end of the ride. That's what it feels like for the Raiders, for us to have gotten to this point where now Gardner Minshew's playing terrible. They have no running game. Aiden O'Connell just broke his thumb, and now he's out for at least 6 to 8 games, but it's not like he was any better before. They have the number 8 pick in the draft. If the draft were to end right now, they're 2-5. It looks bleak, my friend. What have you thought about the Raiders really over the last 3 to 4 years, and then what you think about where they're at right now?
They're consistently a team that doesn't have an identity, right? In a division where it's so hard to compete if you don't. And, you know what I mean? Where you're looking at the Chiefs, to me, it's not just, and I understand it's easy to get encapsulated in this, it's not just, Mahomes and Reed. The Chiefs, behind all that, like under the hood, have built an insane defense under Spags that is consistent. And even when their skill guys get hurt, they can lean on the run or vary their offensive approach. They can play defense and they can be a little more conservative on offense. They win in different ways. And then when you look at now the Chargers under Harbaugh very recently, they're going to be a team that they're going to play very disciplined, stingy defense, and they know how to run the football. And they have a quarterback back there that when he needs to make a throw, they trust them to do it, but they don't want him dropping back 50 times. And even the Broncos, to their credit right now, they have a really, really good defense while they're trying to figure out the offensive side of it. When I look at the Raiders for a long time now, I don't really know what they want to be. And I thought they went with Pierce with the thought that we want to be a team in this division that plays really good defense, runs the ball, doesn't ask our quarterback to be a hero, but we have enough skill guys around whoever is under center that can uplift that quarterback. And then it felt like this draft, they really did just lose the game of musical chairs. And they deserve criticism for that. Teams made moves, right? We know the Raiders were in on the quarterbacks of this draft, and we'll get to when, how they'll be on the quarterbacks of the next draft. But I think the Raiders were a team that probably thought one of J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix would make it to them. And that didn't happen. Yep, and then they were sat there, and I don't know what they thought of Bo Nix, but I had heard throughout the entire process that they were very in on both Penix and McCarthy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were very surprised with how those guys went in the draft. And I think the Raiders fall in that bucket. And then they go into this year with Gardner Minshew, who's really, really struggled. I don't even think their offensive line is that bad, where you look at the Raiders and go, well, they doesn't have a chance to succeed. Out of the gate, this team had Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers. They need a running back really badly. They need an average running back really badly. Zamir White and Alexander Mattison was not the way they should have went into the season. It didn't work out for them. But they're a team that they have no identity. They have no stable force at quarterback. I get that Derek Carr was there for a while, but they can never get over the hump with him. And I don't blame them for eventually moving on and looking for greener grass. But it's just they haven't had a plan of how to get to that greener grass since they moved on from him. They've got caught star chasing. And I don't think I'm not saying the Devontae Adams move was a bad move. It just ultimately didn't work out when you look at what they gave up to get him and what transpired after that. And they're a team that it feels like overall they've been very inconsistent on the back end of their defense for a long time too, while they've had some big time talent up front, starting with Max Crosby, of course. So when I look at the problems with the Raiders for a long time right now, it's that they don't have an identity of what they want to be and a way they build this team.
Yeah, and I don't want to make too many excuses for the team, but you could see what they were going for, and it just didn't work for ways that were predictable and a little bit unpredictable, right? I think that certainly what happened with John Gruden was an unpredictable part of this, and that's why I wanted to go back to Gruden, because this team was getting better under John Gruden. They started off really bad with a really bad record, but again, like I said, they had moved on from Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper, and they were turning the page from a lot of those guys, and Gruden was bringing a lot of his guys in. And so that 3-year stretch with Gruden, the team was getting better. And like I said, they started that year 3-0, and then they had lost 2 games and they were sitting there at 3-2. But the Raiders, obviously, they made the wild card even without John Gruden as their head coach. So when they hired Gruden too, that was that 10-year, $100 million deal. This was their identity. Their identity was the former Super Bowl winning head coach, John Gruden, and they gave him the keys. And the team was getting better. And then all of a sudden, boom, the rug is just yanked out from underneath you. And so you That's go, fair. Okay, well, how do we recover from that? Well, they go after Josh McDaniels, which, look, McDaniels was terrible when he was a head coach of the Denver Broncos. So you could have looked at that and said, we're not going to explore this. But since his return to the Patriots, they had plenty of offensive success. They had been to Super Bowls. They had won Super Bowls with Josh McDaniels. So even that, sure, it's hindsight. It's easy to say, oh, what a terrible move the McDaniels hiring was, but you're sitting there with Derek Carr getting older on a massive contract.
Right.
You're trying to make the most of him. You hire that offensive head coach because you've made so much offensive progress with this team. You didn't want to lose it. This is, I believe, after the Henry Ruggs incident as well, because the Henry Ruggs incident happened in 2021. So it's like you throw that in there. You were building your offense, and then that completely unforeseen thing happens to you as well. And you hire McDaniels in 2022. You then trade a ton of stuff for Devontae Adams. They went all in on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm not going to lie, that's also what I would have done. I would have leaned that direction. Now, would I have gone after McDaniels? Probably not. But again, I don't want to play hindsight too much with it, because I understood the direction they were going. And I also understood hiring Dave Ziegler, right? Somebody who had chemistry with Josh McDaniels.
And they wanted a pairing. Yeah.
And I think, to your point, the lack of identity comes from the lack of continuity that we have seen in this team. You mentioned the Kansas City Chiefs and what they are. Well, they've had a lot of the same guys in the building for forever. They understand what they want. They know how to build the team. And I think the Raiders were trying to set that up. And McDaniels, just as he has before, imploded as a head coach. Derek Carr was not good with him. They go 6-11. They then let Carr out of the building. Right. Devontae's pissed because he just came over and he said, yeah, sure, I'll go reunite with my college teammate where we broke records at Fresno State. And then boom, a year later, you're cutting the cord. You're saying we're done. You're yanking it. So
with no answer, that's, you don't just rip cords out. You got to have answers. They let Carr out, who I've been clear on. I'm not a huge Carr guy, but you can't just a quarterback go, well, this isn't working. Let's get rid of him. And then, well, now what?
So you have that. You then go into the next. It felt like it was just a sinking ship. And you even went into the 2023 offseason wondering if they were going to fire McDaniels after 1 year. They don't, because they thought that was crazy. And then they get 8 games into the next season and they go, oh boy, all right,
this is real bad.
Now we got to do it. So then they fire him. They go with the guy the locker room loves in Antonio Pierce. Patrick Graham's the defensive coordinator. The vibes were so high at the end of the season, and they had some extra cap space that they had the 13th overall pick to go, well, wait a second. If we just get a quarterback here, the defense is going to be good. Let's bring back Antonio Pierce. It's rumored that Max Crosby had quite a bit to say. You don't want to piss off Max Crosby. Yep. You don't want to lose Max Crosby. So you hire Antonio Pierce, but it's not like he didn't do good things last year. He did. He was really able to pick that team up when they were at their lowest. Yeah. That's the sign of a good head coach. And now you get into this year, you whiffed on a quarterback, you whiffed on the running game, you let Josh Jacobs out of the building after you sort of bungled that as well. You go get Christian Wilkins, you bring in some other defensive players, and now the defense is bad. So it's like, again, they've lacked identity. They've lacked consistency, but it's not without trying. And there have been a lot of things that has happened with this organization. Think of the Chandler Jones thing, right? They signed Chandler Jones to a 3-year, $50 million deal. And then 2 years into that deal, he's going through personal issues so bad, he's not even in the league now. So it's like, I don't want to totally give the Raiders a pass here, but they did get the short end of the stick in a lot of different areas. Now, we'll talk about the areas that they whiffed themselves, but it is worth at least noting and summarizing that it has not been all the Raiders' fault why things seem so bleak here. It's been a lot of bad luck as well.
Bad luck, but I'll also counter and say one of their biggest issues is character evaluations. They have had horrific character evaluations. I don't just mean Henry Ruggs is obviously a situation that do we even need to expand on it? That what he did and how selfish that was is, obviously a horrific story. But I also think they've missed on just overall football character at times. They've missed on picks that you just hear stories of guys, that just didn't have what it takes, and they drafted him 2 rounds earlier than everybody thought.
Sure.
Very often. And you brought up some of the big free agent signings or acquisitions they've made. Obviously you said Chandler Jones didn't work out. Now, it really, really didn't work out. And I think that is a little bit bad luck because Chandler Jones had a long track record of success in the NFL and things went off the rails. So that one, I agree with you. I think their college character evaluations, though, have been overall one of the bigger disasters in drafting over the last 10 years.
Now that brings us to the drafting / team building woes that this team has gone through. And brother, if you go back to 2016, it's hard to be this bad on purpose.
Yeah, it is.
Do you remember ESPN's The Streak? Do you remember this? It was a thing that was like 10 years ago where it was before betting was really a thing. And you could go on ESPN and it was called The Streak. I remember this. And you would simply pick a game against the spread. And the idea was there was a leaderboard where you could see like who the monthly winners were, the monthly top winners in the United States. How many games did you get in a row? And that was the streak. But then there was another leaderboard where you could try to purposefully get it wrong. And you could have like a loser streak. But there was also a leaderboard for that, because that's in itself a skill. The Raiders would be at the very top of this leaderboard for how they have drafted since 2016. They are the streak, but on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Connor, they have 6 players, 6 that are notable from 2016 to 2021. Max Crosby, Colton Miller, Malcolm Kuntz, Trayvon Merrick, Divine Diablo, Nate Hobbs. That's it.
That's pretty insane.
You got 5 draft classes, 5 whole draft classes, and you got 6 players. 4 of their former first-round picks from 2016 to 2021 in that range aren't even in the league anymore. Their other 2 are Colton Miller, who was good, and then Cleveland Farrell, who was extremely overdrafted at pick number 4, which you talked about the missing of the evaluation. From the 2016 and 2017 drafts, the only players that are still in the NFL. Sorry, when I said players, that was giving them too much credit. It's player. It's one. From the 2016 and 2017 drafts, there is one player that they drafted that is still in the NFL. It's Jihad Ward. And they happened to trade him 2 years after they drafted him in 2018. So he hasn't even been on the team. It is the draft failure of this organization. It is hard to do on purpose. Tyree Wilson has not been what you have needed him to be as a first-round pick and a top 10 pick. Oh, man, it just that is the area. Now, we'll get into some roster-building stuff. And Tommy Telesco, their new general manager, I want to give him a little bit of credit. This last draft looks like you might go 3 for 3 with the first 3 picks.
It looks a lot better than the million before it.
You talk about the floor of a team. Right? When something doesn't go right for you, a head coach gets fired, you lose a star player due to injury, something unforeseen happens, like one of the many instances that we've already talked about here on the show. The reason why it falls off so drastically for the Raiders is because of how bad they have been acquiring talent in the NFL draft. Make no mistake, we are a draft show. But how you win Super Bowls in the NFL is by drafting well. And no team has been worse at that than the Las Vegas Raiders since 2016.
It just seems so hard to miss on this many first-round picks in a row. Because get away from the fact that, you nailed it, where there's just not a lot of guys from 5 to 8 years ago left in the league. They don't obviously hit on a lot of depth guys or depths of their draft. Max Crosby is the standout, of course. Hunter Renfrow had one good season. It's hard to believe he's out of the league already.
That one I don't get.
That's a weird one.
Dude, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was.
3 years ago, he had 1,000 yards.
Derwin James is calling him like a top 5 wide receiver to cover.
He can't even get a job right now.
That's crazy to me.
But the problem with the Raiders is, and their fans know this, their fans always say it all the time, and I think they side with the draft analysts at this point. They go so off the cuff compared to the consensus rankings with their just their first round picks. Forget like all the misses later on and not finding
Mayock and Gruden did for sure. Yeah.
I mean, Garyon Conley in 2017. Colton Miller was the one good one. They took him a little early, and he really developed into a good tackle.
100%. Yeah.
Cleveland Farrell and Jonathan Abram in the first round, where they took Farrell, they took 4th, but Jonathan Abram even just in the first round is insane, an insane miss. Then you had Ruggs and Damon Arnett is, I think, one of the worst first-round duos I've ever seen. I think Manziel and, was it Justin Gilbert?
Oh, that one's bad too.
That one came to mind, but I mean...
that one's really bad.
You don't want to be in the combo with that era of the Browns.
That's about as bad of talent evaluation as you can get there with Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel. Like mental makeup stuff.
Yeah, at least Ruggs was an NFL talent. I thought Arnett was an egregious top 20 pick.
That was crazy. Mayock and Gruden were in their own bag.
They were like, no, they didn't care about consensus at all. And I say that because they had a full scouting staff. There's no way the full scouting staff also had these off-the-cuff opinions. I mean, so out there opinions that Arnett was a top 20 pick. Alex Leatherwood, a top 20 pick. It's really crazy. And I know you were really low on Tyree Wilson compared to consensus, and you're looking right about that. They took him 7th overall. So, and then even this year, the draft looks good, but it's just, you do sit there and go, man, like, should they have just moved up and gotten one of the quarterbacks? Time will tell. But
so they did. They traded Khalil Mack in 2018, and they got 2 first-round picks for him. One of those first-round picks was John Abram. The other one was Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is good, objectively.
Yeah, but even you took a first-round running back, and he is not the profile of a first-round running back.
I don't know. I like Josh Jacobs a lot.
You got to affect the pass game.
I thought he could. He has. So here's the thing.
In an explosive.
He hasn't in the NFL. Did you hear the stat that he caught his first touchdown? But that wasn't him at Alabama. He could receive it. He was a good receiver at Alabama. So I don't hate that one. I don't totally hate that one. The John Abrams.
No. That's one of the better ones for sure.
The John Abrams one was a big mess. The Clelin Ferrell one is crazy. Even the next year, man, like even outside the 2020 season, Henry Ruggs, Damon Arnett. Obviously, I think Damon Arnett was bad. Then they don't pick in the second round. They took Lynn Bowden Jr. in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I know. And I liked him as a gadget guy, but
in the 3rd round?
They needed a legitimate wide receiver, and they took a gadget guy that they gave up on after OTAs?
Yes, that too. They gave up on him.
You clearly had no plan for him.
Yeah.
100%. You had no plan.
100%.
It was a really tough run for the Raiders drafting until this year. It really was. And that's how you get here when your roster is so thin, because you just haven't gotten any cost-effective depth pieces or even guys to extend. They don't even have guys to extend. It's like, okay, Colton Miller and Max Crosby, we'd like them to be here.
And they're the obvious, second contract candidates, but we're going to get into sort of like where they're at cap-wise and some of the players that they have under contract. Dude, it's basically just them and Christian Wilkins.
I was going to say, that's why you can go out and get a Christian Wilkins.
It's those 3, because you're not signing your guys' second contracts, and the hit rate of second contracts is so low on this team. And it's, dude. Can you imagine what this team? Because when did they draft Crosby? Which year was this?
It's probably 5 years ago now.
They drafted him in 2019. So that was the year after they traded Khalil Mack. Man, can you imagine if this team even just had Max Crosby and Khalil Mack to still lean on?
That'd be crazy.
Because Khalil Mack's still doing it.
I know. And so that's always kind of been the issue, right, with the Raiders too, is that when you change regimes so much, and take it from me, I'm an expert at this, the years I've watched the Jets. When you change regimes so much, even the guys that you hit on as an organization that are your foundational pieces, if you have a new regime that didn't draft them, they're not necessarily willing to commit to them. So then you move on from the guys that you thought were your hits. Remember, the franchise tag disaster with Josh Jacobs, that went on so long that Jacobs missed all of summer. When he came back, he was a month or 2 behind, and he had a shitty season because of that. But if they had just realized, like, hey, this is one of our hits, he's a guy we like around here, let's commit to him now, Josh Jacobs wouldn't have missed camp, and he would have been fine that year, in my opinion. So, and they traded Khalil Mack. They didn't commit to him as an organization. And then also guys don't want to commit to you because you're not building a successful organization. I know part of it is Davante Adams wanted to go play with Aaron Rodgers, but Davante Adams was also looking around. Like we all have Netflix. He's looking around at the quarterbacks that they gave him after Derek Carr, and he's like, fuck this. I'm going to die on this field. So
we all have Netflix, he said.
One way or the other. So that's the problem with, like I said, I'm an expert in this field of always changing regimes.
Of stealing Netflix accounts?
Oh, yeah, they made it harder these days.
They do.
They actually do collect my dime. We have our own now. It's just the game is the game.
Damn, you got it like that?
They got me.
You got it like that?
Well, yeah, but you know,
Damn,
you
got your own Netflix account.
I got my own Netflix where the profile I click on says Connor.
Whoa!
And I look around at the family, which is just my wife and my dog, and I'm like, y'all like that? And they just look at me and they're like, can you please go away? Can you go find another podcast to record?
Just turn the show on.
Yeah, just shut up and turn the show on.
Look, so I think that this past draft has been better, but
oh yeah,
it's even Telesco, like Telesco makes you a little bit nervous, right? There's a reason why it was available. There's a reason why the Chargers moved on from him. When you look at Telesco's drafts over the last 2 years before this past one, with the Raiders, first round pick was Zion Johnson, and then they didn't have a second round pick. Then third round, it's JT Woods. Fourth round, it's Isaiah Spiller, Odio Ogbonia, Jamari Sawyer in the sixth round. You go to the next year, 2023, Quentin Johnston, Tui Tuipulotu, good. Henley at linebacker, I think it'd be good, but then it's just the depth players, the day three players, I don't think are very solid for what, and that's a lot of times when you make your bread and butter with a general manager, like you're supposed to be able to hit at a decently high rate on the first round. Second round, you're trying to get contributing players and potential starters from, and then day three, you're hoping to get a lot of players who really help out the health and the depth part of your practice squad and your 53 game day roster. And I don't feel like Telesco did a great job there. I think at least he's a candidate to have gotten things off to a good start during his tenure with the Raiders, because Brock Bowers, it looks like he could be the top tight end in the NFL this year. DJ Glaze has looked decent at offensive tackle. They might have a starting offensive tackle there opposite Colton Miller with DJ Glaze. And then Jackson Powers Johnson, I think, is going to develop into a good starting center for this team as well. So it's hopeful moving forward, but now we got to get into what the coaching staff is like and what the gentleman. I don't think Tom Telesco is really going anywhere, so we say that he's probably here to stay. But is Antonio Pierce, after signing a contract to be the full-time head coach last offseason, is he going to be the guy moving forward? We've got some candidates that we might have as potential replacements if we don't think that. But before we get to that, best part about football season, guys, is checking out the post-game stats. Which wide receiver scored more than 2 touchdowns, which quarterbacks threw for more or less than 300 yards. If you think you know what's going to happen before kickoff, you got to play Pick 6 from DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. You download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Select between 2 to 6 players, all right? Just a little combination there. Choose if they will have more or less than a single stat, and it is that simple. For all the first-time Pick 6 players, new customers, they play just $5 on any first Pick 6 set. You get 50 in Pick 6 credits. It's very simple. Like we said, 2 to 6. If you see any juicy matchups that you really like this upcoming weekend, a wide receiver that you think is absolutely going to feast. We got DeAndre Hopkins now on the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe you think, immediate boost. He's at least getting a touchdown. If that's out there for DraftKings Pick 6, which I'm pretty sure it's going to be, you might be able to put some money on the line. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Use promo code PFF. It's promo code PFF for new customers to play just $5 on your first Pick 6 set, and then you get 50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. In Connecticut, must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. All right, so that's a little bit of the oral history, the lore of how we got here with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now we're going to get into more of what Connor and I would do moving forward. So that's what a lot of these fixture franchises is about. We're going to kind of come together and talk about what we would do here. Connor, what do you think about the coaching staff? Luke Getsy's the offensive coordinator. Patrick Graham's the defensive coordinator. Getsy is new. Patrick Graham's been there the last 2 years, and Antonio Pierce was obviously the linebackers coach last year. Then he was signed to be the full-time head coach this past offseason. Do you think he sticks around? Do you think he gets another crack at this? Or do you think they're looking to move on and get a different head coach next season?
I think he gets another crack. I don't think Mark Davis is going to be overly eager to move on from him after this 1 year that's been chaotic. Did you know Joe Philbin's on this staff, by the way? It's just a little fun fact for you. Yes, Joe Philbin is their senior offensive assistant.
Damn.
I think this is
get some better plays out there. Come on, Joe. What are you doing?
I think they're going to go the Bears route. I think they're going to wipe out their offensive staff, and I think they're going to staple a new OC to a first-round quarterback. Now, I don't think that's a lock. I think it's far from a lock. I think I'd call it like 70-30. 70% chance Pierce
stays.
Pierce stays, but they have a pretty new offensive staff.
Yeah.
30% chance that he's gone and they hire an offensive coach that's just paired with the quarterback.
I think what do you think? I think I lean that way as well. Now, obviously, we're sitting here. It's the middle of October, so
yeah, a lot can change.
If the vibes get terrible, like if they only win 2 more games, they end up finishing what's the math now 4-13 on the season. It might feel like they're going in a different direction. So, when I look at this team, though, I think it will be heavily offensive focused, whether Antonio Pierce is there or not.
That's my thing too.
And when I think about potential changes in the coaching staff, I think that Getsy's going to be out of there. I think they'll probably move on from Patrick Graham as well, because the defense just hasn't been good enough and somebody's got to be a scapegoat. So it does sort of feel like that a Chicago Bears situation where Pierce might stay because you don't want to fire him because you don't want to be then paying 2 head coaches to not coach your football team, including whoever they would go out and get. And let's face it, if you're going out to get somebody, it probably costs you a pretty penny, because the candidates that I have for this team to be their head coach, if Antonio Pierce is not there, Ben Johnson is the one that have talked about the last 2 years, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, but he has said no to unstable situations over the last 2 years. I cannot imagine he's going to say yes to the Raiders outside of if he grew up a Raiders fan. That's
right.
Or if Tom Brady becomes a minority owner and somehow finds a way to also be the quarterback of the team. Outside of that, I don't think the Ben Johnson's going to come over.
No, we have to have the honest Ben Johnson combo, and this is a good time to do it. A lot of the teams that are going to be our first couple of fix-year franchises feel pretty comfortable saying Ben Johnson won't want to go there. Because if somebody keeps showing you who they are, believe them. He keeps turning down offers for head coaching jobs.
Right.
He could have been the Commanders coach. They had the 2nd pick in the draft. Like, it was all like, hey, dude, build it your way here in a really good quarterback draft.
That's a great point.
I don't think this quarterback draft is as good as last year's. I don't know if the Raiders will be in line to take one, because there's a hint. There's a lot of crappy teams right now that'll need one. Maybe Antonio Pierce coaches them to a couple more wins than other teams. It's a tough sell for a guy that just shows no interest in wanting to go anywhere right now. That's okay, by the way. That's we need to get over this. If my team doesn't get Ben Johnson, we're doomed. Because look at the Commanders. They're pretty freaking awesome right now.
Dan Quinn was a great hire, and we talked about for 2 straight years on this very program on Fix Your Franchise. I kept saying, Dan Quinn, somebody hire Dan Quinn, and here we are. Look at him.
Broncos wanted him, right? And he went back to Dallas.
He interviewed with the Broncos.
I think they wanted him.
I don't remember how serious that was.
Yeah. Either way, good job, Commanders.
Yeah. So, if you're not going to get Ben Johnson,
you're screwed. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. You're not at all. You're not at all.
I've got a plan. I got a plan.
Okay, I'm excited to hear this.
Or I got the beginnings of a plan. So, Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick are 2 options, right? Veteran coaches, proven coaches. You can go that direction. The issue is they are sort of cut from the same cloth, if you will, than Antonio Pierce. Now, if you just want to say that straight up they are better head coaches than Antonio Pierce, that's fine. I won't push back on you. I thought it was crazy that Vrabel got fired last year. I think he's one of the best coaches that's not out there. Belichick, I don't know, man. They already tried the Patriot way thing, and it makes me believe that they wouldn't go after Belichick or they wouldn't go after Mike Vrabel. Belichick feels like the guy, if you do it for anybody, you'd get the brain trust of the Patriots way and you bring it over, and maybe Mark Davis likes that. But those two guys are, I think, at least worth calling out. However, the plan that I actually want to talk about here is if Antonio Pierce stays, you have to do something at offensive coordinator. And I really like getting Todd Monken from the Baltimore Ravens to come be your offensive coordinator. Now, some people might say, why would Todd Monken do that? Why would Todd Monken go from coaching Lamar Jackson and the MVP, maybe a back-to-back MVP and more, playoff runs? Why would Todd Monken do that?
I am some people, by the way.
The reason Monken would do that is because he would get to become offensive coordinator of this team, and he is very clearly next in line to get that head coach job if Antonio Pierce falters at all whatsoever next offseason. So John Harbaugh is not going anywhere with the Ravens. And it doesn't seem like Monken is getting enough looks every offseason to warrant him maybe being a head coach like he might want to be. So I think that Monken making the lateral move, it sounds crazy. But I think if you are keeping Antonio Pierce and you are not, like I said, having to fire a head coach and pay him to not coach your team, you're already still, I think, paying McDaniels to not coach your football team, and then hire a third head coach, something that would be a lot cheaper is instead making Todd Monken the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL and getting him to come over, giving him the interim head coach tag, and basically saying, if it doesn't work with Antonio Pierce, you are our guy. You become the head coach of this football team. So if he wants to be a head coach again, or sorry, for the first time, I should say, well, no, he was a head coach in college, so I guess I'll redact what I said. You might be able to lure Monken over. I think that is an option. I wonder if that is an option with Joe Brady as well with the Buffalo Bills. Now, maybe Joe Brady's good enough where he's going to get head coaching looks anyways. But this is what I would think about here. And let me be very clear. If Antonio Pierce gets fired, these are two guys, Joe Brady and Todd Monken, that I would make candidates to be the head coach anyways. So I'm just trying to find out a way if you can have your cake and eat it too, because I agree with you. It doesn't feel like they're going to move on from Antonio Pierce, but you got to do something. And so that is my offer to them. Make one of these offensive coordinators, have them make a lateral move and double their salary to do so. It's my thoughts. What do you think?
I think it's a long shot, but because I think
you're a hater. It's fine.
It's a great idea.
You're stomping out my dreams.
I am. I just hear the Ravens fans screaming at us, but no, it's the right idea. I just don't know if they have the clout to pull that off. If I'm Todd Monken, I'm going to work with the MVP of the league instead. I actually think Todd Monken's going to get looks this offseason. I heard he interviewed really, really well a couple of years ago and just came up short. And I think that his track record since getting those head coaching interviews a couple of years ago, I believe that was 2020, he'll get another shot after this year. I think the Ravens might be the best team in football. So
right,
eventually that's just at some point they're like, hey, maybe we should look at this guy. Brady, that is an interesting one because that does give you a little bit more power, but you're right. He might be young enough that he just gets those looks anyway, like Dable did from the Bills as a head coach. You're on the right path. I just don't know how plausible it is. The Raiders have a lot of problems right now offensively that they can get an up-and-comer, but can they get somebody established that already has a better job? You'd have to pay. And you'd have to get permission, and the guy would have to want to leave, and he'd have to not be under contract anymore because it's a lateral move, so it gets blocked if you're under contract. You're right. They have their work cut out for them. It's going to be kind of tricky. And to be honest with you, this whole conversation leads me to think, well, maybe they do need to move on from Pierce because they won't be able to get an offensive coordinator because it's a lateral move and they need to hire a head coach. Maybe you have to go hire Todd Monken as your head coach. I'm not kidding.
No, I know. So
yeah, it's actually opened a really interesting door because I think you have the exact right idea. I don't know the roadmap to get there is possible without it being the head coach spot, which makes me kind of reevaluate my 70-30 thing. But my 70-30 thing is how Mark Davis is thinking, which I hope he doesn't think that way.
I have 2 other wild card names for you. Actually, I have 3 other wild card names for you for specifically offensive coordinator, right? If the Todd Monken or the Joe Brady move is sort of a pipe dream and it would never happen. If they're keeping Antonio Pierce, I got 3 names for you. Dirk Cutter's one of them. He was a head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for 3 years.
Yeah.
They had a very potent offense. Todd Monken was his offensive coordinator those years, and they really lit up the scoreboard. They just couldn't figure it out in the win column to come together as a team. He was in the offensive coordinator of the Falcons for a couple of years after that. And right now, Connor, I don't know if you know this, he is the offensive coordinator for Boise State.
No, I was wondering where he is. What a wild turn of events.
So he was the head coach at Boise State in 1998 to 2000. And after he got let go by the Falcons, he just went back to Boise State as an offensive analyst. And then this year he took over as their offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. So now he just gets to say in the headset, hand Ashton Genty the friggin' ball. And then that's basically how the offense goes for Dirk Cutter. But he's got NFL experience. He's 65 years old. So I don't know. Maybe he's just looking to, keep it low key. But he is somebody. The next name is Chip Kelly. Okay.
Now we're getting wild.
Chip Kelly. Hold on. Chip Kelly.
No, I like it.
He was with UCLA, obviously, and I think Chip Kelly wanted some offers somewhere else. I think he either wanted to be a head coach somewhere else in college football, make a move up, or get back to the NFL. And I don't think he got either of those. That's why he took a step down, and he is Ohio State's offensive coordinator right now. So I think Chip Kelly would be willing to go to an offensive coordinator spot at the NFL level because he's sort of, it's basically like capitalism at this point. You are what somebody says that you are worth. So he might be willing to get that OC spot for them. We know he's got NFL experience and a lot of just coaching experience overall. And then the final one is Dan Mullen, right? Does Dan Mullen want to get back into coaching? When he was the head coach of Florida, for all of his recruiting blunders, they were one of the top 5, top 10 scoring teams in the country for 3 straight years. The man knows how to coach football. It felt like he wanted to make a jump to the NFL, but it didn't happen. He could be somebody who I think could be their offensive coordinator as well. So those are 3 non-pipe dream names that I think might be possible if you're sticking with Antonio Pierce and you want to make an upgraded offensive coordinator.
I think you're onto it that's the route they would go, dive into the college ranks. Dirk Cutter's such an interesting one. I did not even think of him. Didn't know he was back at Boise, pressing the halfback blast button to Ashton Genty.
Slamming the button. Just, what do you want to do? Halfback dive. And it's just
power again. Power again. Imagine Dirk Cutter on the headset getting more intense as the game goes on. But it's really not that big of a moment. Ashton Genty's run for 200 yards and he's just screaming in run plays. Oh, I love it. It's good stuff. Here's one for you. And this is me kind of trolling, but not really.
Okay.
When they draft Shedeur Sanders.
Oh, don't stop.
Pat Shurmur is their offensive coordinator, brought with him from Colorado.
All right. I thought you were going to say Dion, so that's a lot better.
No, Dion's not calling offensive plays. Dion's definitely there. Dion's definitely there in some capacity, but they just bring Pat Shurmur with him, who is Shedeur's offensive coordinator right now. And kind of trolling because it speaks for itself, but kind of not trolling because Shurmur's coached offense in the NFL he's coached offense in the NFL for 2 decades. I mean, I don't think he's good. I thought he was really bad with the Giants, but Colorado's moving the ball. They got a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. I'm just saying it's not what I would do, but don't be shocked if you hear rumblings of that. I think the Raiders are just, the Shedeur plan is just a thing for the Raiders. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I have to talk about it because of this topic.
I was going to say, we will get to that with the 3-round mock draft at the end. Before we did get into the roster, so that's coaching staff, that's our situation there. We're going to get into the roster next. We'll talk about some cap space, some guys that are there, and then we will get into that mock draft. But before we do that, the show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Think about a time when maybe you didn't feel yourself, right? You were hiding behind a mask. You were wearing a costume. October, it's Halloween. It's a season for wearing masks and costumes, but some of us, we know out there, they feel like they're wearing a mask or a costume, but they don't want to be at work, social settings, around the family, relationships, whatever it is. Therapy can help you accept all parts of yourself so you take off the mask, not feel like you got to hide your true self, because masks, they're for Halloween. They're not for your emotions, right? I've been doing therapy for over a year and a half, and it's exactly that. It has allowed me to have a better relationship with who I am, who I am naturally. It's allowed me to let my strengths shine even more and fix some of the things that I want to get better at. And it's helped me really accept who I am throughout that entire journey. It's been really powerful. It's been awesome. It can be a great, useful tool to have a better understanding of how your mind actually works. You can become more aware of your own patterns, behaviors, things like that, how to improve them. It's not just for people who are struggling with specific things, although it can be great for that as well. If you really need help with that and you want somebody to talk to about that, it is great for that, but it's so much more. If you're ever thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's convenient, flexible, and entirely on way to get therapy that is right for you. You just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. You switch therapists at any time, no additional charge. You can take off that mask with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/NFLSE to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/NFLSE.
You want to hear how much of a neighborhood dad with no kids I've become?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I got up during grad read to look out my window because I have a neighbor who I like. Let me make that very clear. But he's a little loose and wild with the leaf blower.
Okay.
And I definitely noticed that he just wildly pushes all of his leaves to one of my neighbor's houses because I think they come from the tree they have.
Oh, hell yeah.
And so I've been kind of observing this for a while, and he's out now. So I was just making sure it's not now making its way to my yard. Like he's out leaf blowing again. I'm like, I want no part of the leaf wars. Like I'll do my own leaf blowing and raking. And like, I don't care if it comes from your tree or that tree. Like I'll just clean up my yard. I'm not like a neighborhood watch guy.
It sounds like you are, actually.
But I did have to get up and observe what the latest is in the middle of the podcast. I've really become a neighborhood dad with no kids. Lawn wars.
You are the great houses of the Dune leaf wars in your neighborhood. That's what this is right now.
Oh man, at the crossing.
All right, let's get into the Raiders roster here.
Hands on the hips, looking out the window.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like jean shorts tucked in.
No, I do wear jean shorts.
New Balance. You know, the ankle socks a little bit up. You just that's how you got to. That's how you got to do it. 3 for Dale shirt, obviously. All right, cap space and free agency for this team. The good news is, Raiders fans, and this is the fun part about the podcast. $108 million in projected cap for 2025. That's the 4th most in the NFL. When you look at the players on their roster that have the highest cap hits right now, Christian Wilkins obviously signed a big deal last offseason, so he's going to be high on the list. He's number 1. He's $33 million on the cap next year. Max Crosby is $28 million on the cap next year. Colton Miller, he's got 2 years left. Actually, next year might be the last year of his deal. He's $15 million on the cap. Then you got Jacoby Myers, who's $14 million on the cap. Gardner Minshew is $14 million on the cap. And then I did see that Chandler Jones is still a void year next year with $8 million on the cap. But you only have 5 players on the roster that are making more than $10 million a year on the cap. That's about as flexible as it gets, folks. Some cut candidates that actually, you know what? I want to go to you first before we get to some like cut candidates and expiring contracts and we can get a potential free agency plan. Just what overall thoughts on this roster here for the for the Raiders, just sort of like where they're at?
They have some pieces on offense. Obviously, Bowers is going to be a foundational piece. You look at the offensive line. I once again, I think they've been overall fine. Ironically, like Colton Miller has been a staple there. Dylan Parham,
good. Yep. They
drafted Glaze this year, who's played a lot for them. Jordan Meredith has played a lot for them at guard. And these guys have played fine. I don't look at this group and I didn't even mention JPJ, who's a rookie this year as well, Jackson Powers Johnson. I think this offensive line is in a totally adequate place. It's not like a rookie quarterback's going to come into the situation and be like, oh my God, how is he going to stay alive? Like, look at Drake May with the Patriots. I know the Commanders were concerned with Jaden Daniels, but Daniels is so elusive that it's actually been okay. Even the rib injury wasn't from him just getting battered in the pocket or anything like that. So I'm trying to come up with some positive thoughts here for the roster. So that's where I like what they have on offense. Obviously, up front is where the defensive identity is because you have Crosby, you signed Christian Wilkins. Robert Spillane has been, and he's a free agent after this year, but yes, he's been a really nice find for them. Yeah. He's been a staple in the middle of their defense. And then after that, personally, I'm not overly tied to anybody else on this defense.
I think Bennett's been good. Did you mention Bennett?
I did not.
Ja'Cory Bennett's been good. He needs to tackle better, but like he has at least had a nice little second year bump here. Nate Hobbs, I think is good for this team. He's going to be a free agent, or at least he has been good throughout the course of his rookie contract. But I think Ja'Cory Bennett is somebody who I like. You know, Crosby, Colton Miller. I agree with you. The offensive line's good. Brock Bowers is good. Michael Mayer's been hurt, so that's tough. I like Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers, you can't really cut him. He doesn't.
No, he's a reliable wide receiver in a room that needs reliability, and they're going to have to add talent.
And his contract is also not like, it does not behoove you to cut him. Like, you will have more dead money than not. So he's not going anywhere. But go ahead, Trevor. I was just going to say, when I look at this team, I think the needs are just along all the offensive side of the ball. Like, I think this entire offseason has to be focused on offense. Quarterback is your most dire need. Wide receiver as well.
We need number one.
Adams. Yeah, even with Brock Bowers, like you need a number one wide receiver to help out this team, and then running back. Like, you got to get way better at running back too. And
that's easy.
We'll get into free agents in a second. But to me, those are the three big needs on the team: quarterback, wide receiver, running back. That's what I think that you got to hit pretty hard, especially when it comes to a draft focus. Do you agree?
I completely agree. And the nice news is, you know, you could make a big splash for a wide receiver. You could draft a quarterback, and you could add a veteran running back and draft a running back, and you have a new backfield. So I actually think I'm kind of excited about this job. And I know it's Telesco. It's not like somebody's coming in and taking it over, but I don't look at the Raiders and go, and hitting on the quarterback is really difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but they can significantly improve with the things they need. There's actually supply.
Yes.
Typically. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
There's usually not a supply of offensive linemen. There's usually not always a supply of a top edge rusher. They have those things. So there's some optimism here.
And I think the free agency decently lines up sort of like what you said with what this team wants to do. Now, you mentioned that Spillane, who I think is playing really well for them at linebacker, he's an expiring contract, but they have a couple of other ones. Marcus Epps also an expiring contract. I don't know if they would bring him back. Trayvon Merrick is an expiring contract. I think they would bring him back.
Okay.
Same with Divine Diablo. Malcolm Kuntz was playing really well before he got hurt, so I think that both of those guys will be back. Nate Hobbs, I would think, would be back as well, but it's not like bringing those players back is breaking the bank for you. No. You're just, to me, like keeping a good core of your team together. So Raiders fans, please let us know if you think that we're way off track. But in my opinion, of Spillane, Epps, Merrick, Diablo, Kuntz, Hobbs, those guys on expiring contracts, I think the only one that you maybe aren't going to re-sign is Marcus Epps. Or maybe people think that, no, you're absolutely re-signing Marcus Epps. So like maybe you're bringing back all of them. So the defensive depth of your team, I think you're all right. Now you still need Tyree Wilson to play better. Like,
yeah, there's no denying that.
Tyree Wilson just has to play better. You draft him at number 8 overall for a reason. He has to play better. I think Christian Wilkins is obviously good when he's out there. Max Crosby's Max Crosby. But I guess before we get into free agency, we could have this conversation. It doesn't seem like Max wants to be traded. Would you trade him? If you were running the Raiders. Now, obviously, I think, look, personal feelings, like I want to take those out of it. Like talk burning a bridge, like all that. Like I don't want to talk about all that. Objectively, would you trade Max Crosby if you had the opportunity to if the Detroit Lions called you up and said, we're giving you 2 first-round picks and a 3rd-round pick for Max Crosby? Are you taking it?
No. I'm going to keep Max Crosby because my goal with the Raiders is to establish a new culture, and a lot of those young pieces are going to be on the offensive side of the ball. And I need stability in that locker room that also knows, and I know it hasn't been a ton of winning for them, but a guy that does know how to win. And Crosby is 27 years old. He is on a relatively manageable contract over the next couple of years for a top flight pass rusher. These pass rush contracts are going to explode.
Yeah, his cap hit actually goes down over the next 2 years.
It does. It spikes under 30. I would want him to be a part of the turnaround, and I think Max Crosby takes a lot of pride in wanting to be there for the turnaround. I don't have confidence I'm going to find my Max Crosby replacement with one of those assets. If he was 29 or 30, it's a different conversation. I think Max Crosby has 5 big years left of him in the NFL. If I'm the Raiders, I'm looking at this and going, I think by 2026, we could be a problem. Is Max Crosby still going to be Max Crosby at 29? Yeah, he is. So I'm going to keep Max Crosby in this situation and have him be a big part of our turnaround and have him be our team leader and be a big piece of our identity, because their biggest problem is they have no identity year after year. And I'm not trying to detract from that any further. I'm trying to stack it and build on top of it.
You know, I was thinking of being a real sicko and trading Max for this exercise so that we could have an extra first-round pick to deal with and another third-round pick to deal with, which would have made 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and 3 third-round picks because of the Davante Adams trade as well. But the more I thought of it, the more I agreed with you. I don't think it really behooves them to trade Max Crosby. I don't. I just don't think you could try. I mean, tearing it down to the studs, they're basically already there at this point anyways. You can't move on from Christian Wilkins because you just traded, because you just signed him. There's no reason moving on from Colton Miller. And in fact, when we get into the free agency strategy in a second, I'm going to tell you that that's where I really want to spend my money on this team and my emphasis on this team. But I would not trade Crosby. I wouldn't. Now this edge rush group is deep. So if you traded Crosby for 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick from the Detroit Lions, it's going to be a late first-round pick. There are edge rushers that I think you could get at the back end of the first round this year, because I think that's the feeling of this edge rush group is it's not as top-heavy, but it is more as deep. So like back end of the first round, early parts of the second round, you could probably get yourself a nice edge rusher to replace him. But like you said, where you're trying to go for this team and a winning window that you're trying to really set up in 2026, Crosby can be a part of that. And I don't think you're going to get one of these edge rushers in the back end of the first round that's going to be like a Max Crosby. So
I agree.
I wouldn't move him either. I would love to hear from Raiders fans. Anybody, shoot, even not Raiders fans, just draft enthusiasts out there listening to this show. Do some mock drafts for us where you, in fact, trade Crosby off of this team and tell us the mock draft results of a 3-round mock draft. And let's see it in the comments section. Let's see if we can actually visualize it and look at it and go, all right, maybe I would move him, because that's a pretty good dream that you're setting up there. Would love for that to be a little bit of an exercise that the addicts do here on this show. When it comes to free agency, I mentioned it, $108 million in free agency money. You figure a good chunk of that's going to be bringing back those 6 guys, 5 or 6 guys that I mentioned to keep the backbone of your defense there and up and running, but they'll still have plenty of money afterwards. Connor, I think if they want to hit quarterback in free agency again, I don't advise it, but I think Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, those are the 2 that are the best available when you look at the potential free agent market right now. In my opinion, that doesn't entice me enough. Does it entice you? Are you intrigued at the quarterback market at all, or you think they're all in on the draft?
I'd be all in on the draft. I would make sure, and I understand Aiden O'Connell will still be there, so maybe he's that solution, but I would rather have a veteran backup in the room to be a voice for whoever they draft. I always like that idea. You know, and that market can go a lot of different ways when you look at free agency. But I mean, the names out there are Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston. But no, I would be all in on the draft, and I would get a veteran to sit behind that player and kind of help him along. I don't think that's fair to ask of Aiden O'Connell, who is still playing for his NFL career.
Yeah, I do agree with you that I would avoid that. Now, when it comes to wide receiver, you could go out and get a wide receiver.
They should.
T. Higgins. Stephon Diggs. Chris Godwin.
T. Higgins because of the age.
I mean, I think T. Higgins is the obvious one that you would love to go get.
Diggs will be 32. Godwin will be approaching 30, coming off a really bad injury. Feel bad for Chris Godwin, man. I love watching him play. I would be in on Higgins. And I think it's doable. I really do. That's the play. I'd go get T. Higgins and have him be my number 1 for my quarterback.
And there's not really, I mean, some of the other options that are out there in free agency, you know, like Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, which would be funny. Brandon Cooks, no. DeAndre Hopkins just got traded, no. Then you get into like Mike Williams, Odell Beckham Jr.,
Bridge
Tyler
guys.
Boyd. Yeah, guys that don't really move the needle for me that I don't think they'd be going out to get.
Greg Dortch.
Greg,
Tutu Atwell.
Okay. You actually had me at Dortch. I was like, well, and then he threw
Dortch
out
is
Tutu. I'm like,
player.
oh, wait a
He's
second.
a fine slot, but Brock Bowers should play the slot.
No, you get Trey Turner or Trey Tucker on this team.
Right. There you go.
Yeah, you don't need him.
No,
yeah, forget
it's C. Higgins.
So
I would take
two wide receiver. I'd take it. Yeah. So all right. So let's move forward and say let's get T. Higgins for this football team. Okay. So in free agency, I think we're bringing back a lot of those guys we mentioned, and we're adding T. Higgins. Now, are you going to add a veteran running back? I'm not.
I am.
So who are you going to add? Najee Harris is out there. Javonte Williams is out there. James Conner is out there. If you want to sort of go towards like the top of the market.
Well,
Aaron Jones is, but I don't think he's going to go to the Raiders.
No.
Like A.J. Dillon's still out there. Nick Chubb would be out there.
Oh, I would take Nick Chubb. I don't think he would go there. But
I don't think he would either. I think he's staying in Cleveland.
I would love Nick Chubb from a character perspective and just what he brings to the team. You know who I would go get? I think I'd go get James Conner. Now, let me put this in perspective. I'm not paying James Conner $7 million a year. I'm assuming at age 30, James Conner is going to take a 1-year deal for incentives. This is the market I'm playing in because I'm drafting a guy that is eventually going to be my number one running back, but I want a veteran that can play all 3 downs. So I would want either James Conner. Javonte's a weird one. He's had a weird career.
He has.
Najee will get paid more than I want to pay. I think the league likes Najee a lot more than the public likes Najee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would try to see if I can get James Conner on a 1-year deal. That would be my move.
I would like that if you can get him for the right cash. So maybe you're bringing in James Conner as well because I don't hate that idea. There's not a lot of other running backs that would entice me.
He's so underrated. It's crazy to
me. Totally. I definitely agree with you. He would be great for this football team. So let's say they bring in T. Higgins. I'll give you James Conner.
Thank you.
Offensive line is where I am next because when I look at this team, I want this to be the emphasis of the team.
Yeah, me too.
Let DJ Glaze play at right tackle. I think he could be a starting right tackle for you. At least he's shown some flashes that he might be. Jordan Meredith is a pretty good swing depth interior offensive lineman. We've even seen that this year. Dylan Parham's a good guy that you could play at a couple of different spots. Jackson Powers Johnson's going to be at least a guard or a center for you. And then you got Colton Miller on the other side. To me, go make the splash and get a really solid offensive line out there. Zach Martin, if you can get him, he's a free agent. I understand he's not the Zach Martin of old. It's still Zach freaking Martin. Go get Zach Martin if you can make that happen. James Daniels from Pittsburgh.
He's been really good.
He's in the last year of a 3-year deal, and obviously he got hurt, so he is out for the season. He tore his Achilles, so that goes into it. But James Daniels is playing some good football. If you go get James Daniels to play next to Dylan Parham and Jackson Powers Johnson, you got Colton Miller on one side, and you got DJ Glaze on the other. You got Meredith as a backup interior offensive lineman. That's a good start, man. That's a really good start to a season. That's a really good, and maybe we end up drafting a guy here that we could get somewhere else. I think Patrick McCarry, since he went from right tackle into left guard for the Baltimore Ravens, has been a nice option there. I think you could get him potentially as a left guard because he is a free agent. But to me, I'd love for them to, as long as because James Daniels ain't that old.
No, probably 27.
He's 27. I know he's coming off the Achilles, but man, I'd take the flyer on James Daniels for how well he was playing.
If you think JPJ could be a full-time center, that's the move, is to go get a guard. Because I don't think they have the answer at center right now.
And James Daniels can play center.
Right.
He can play center for you.
So interior offensive lineman, I'd make an ad there.
So that's what I would want to do. So free agency. So we're keeping, to wrap it up before we get to the 3-round mock draft, we're keeping Max Crosby. We're signing the defensive guys that are up for second contracts. We're getting T. Higgins. We're getting James Conner. And we're going to get James Daniels.
I'll throw one more name at you, by the way.
No.
If they let oh, man.
Didn't expect that one, did you?
No, I wasn't ready. I just got bullied.
All right, who you got?
If they let Merrick walk,
Uh-huh.
I'd try to get Budda Baker.
Ooh.
Right? I mean,
I don't hate it.
A little more playmaking on the back end of your defense. He's 29. He'll be 29 at free agency.
I love Budda Baker. I don't think they're going to let him out.
Okay.
Because I got to think that I got to think that Gannon's got like plans for him as the guy, you know?
Yeah. I hope so.
But I don't hate where your mind is at, because that would be the one other spot that I would like to, like make a splash.
Yeah, a little bit more range and playmaking, create some turnovers, help out your front.
Yep. So, and I guess they have Isaiah Polamalu, who was pretty good when he first started. I haven't checked up on his last couple of games, but I know they drafted Trey Taylor as well. They've got Merrick. Epps is on IR, I think. Yeah, he's on IR. Yeah, I guess safety's worth a look as well. I wouldn't prioritize it as much, but I do hear what you're saying. If you have an opportunity to make a big splash, I do like that. At least giving it a look.
Time to draft?
Time to draft, baby. Let's do it.
Best time.
All right. Firing up the PFF mock draft simulator. I will do my best to explain what we're looking at here to everybody who might be audio only. So we've got the Las Vegas Raiders, who are currently picking 8th in the draft. We're going to go with a 3-round mock draft here. I'm going to enter the draft real quick. I do have to make the trade with the Jets because we need to update that.
For the 3rd round pick.
For the 3rd round pick, we're the Jets. They're the Jets. So that would be... Oh, wait, do they not have the Lions pick in here either? We need to switch that over? Might need to switch that over.
Yeah, the Jets also have the Lions 3rd round pick.
Oh, but it is the Jets pick that they traded.
But the Jets traded their own. We think the Jets traded their own 3rd rounder and are keeping the Lions 3rd rounder.
Okay.
So, and that'll be earlier because newsflash, people, the Lions are much better than the New York Jets. Don't know if you've seen.
All right, so we'll make that trade just so we got it. So we have this trade here. Shoot, did I? Oh, I might not have had that go through. Wait, let me double check. This is fantastic podcasting. I know everybody loves that. Everybody loves this. No, 69 here. Force the trade. All right. Okay. All right. I don't know what happened, and it didn't work the first time, but we're good. Now we're back. All right. So the Raiders on the clock here at number 8. We have Will Johnson off the board, Travis Hunter's off the board, Jalen Milrose off the board, Ted McMillan, Kenneth Grant, Will Campbell, Malachi Starks, all off the board there to start things off. So at number 8, Connor, I'm thinking either offensive tackle, because Kelvin Banks Jr. is still here. If you don't think that DJ Glaze is your future right tackle, I like the idea of setting him up there. But then, of course, there is the quarterback conversation.
They're going to take a quarterback.
The heavier one. Cam Ward is still here. Shedeur Sanders is still here. I know you talked about Shedeur potentially being the option, but with Cam there at number 8, I think we go Cam here.
I'm taking Cam Ward.
Okay.
Yeah, right. It's not really much of a combo for me. But I try to always be fair, and I think it will be a combo all the way up to the draft. There's a lot of people that will really like Shedeur as their top quarterback, and I have no problem with that. There's a lot of people like me that'll like Cam Ward as their top quarterback. I want the guy that has better mobile playmaking, and that to me is Cam. But I could see a world where the Raiders really buy into Shedeur and believe in him as a pocket passer and, probably the best ball placement in the class. And it'll be a really interesting combo. But this is our fixing. And if you're okay with it, did any quarterbacks go before them?
Milroe was, but I have
Milroe went.
It's because I have him ranked higher, right? So
he's your QB1.
Still, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I would take Cam in that spot, and obviously, I guess you would agree because you have Cam QB2.
Yeah. So if you want to, if you want to say, oh, Milroe going that early is unrealistic, okay, then just put Cam there, and then you can put Shedeur there, because even though I brought up Kelvin Banks Jr., we're taking a quarterback at number 8. That's the way that we're going. Yeah. So Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, to me, would have been the options there at number 8. We had an opportunity where Cam Ward was still on the board, so obviously we took it because I think that Cam is fantastic as well, and I think he'd be really good for this team no matter who the offensive coordinator would be. And I think we're seeing that with how well he is playing at Miami, which is, man, a big-time throw machine, a comeback machine. I mean, the moment is not too big for Cam Ward.
That's what they need. They need mental toughness.
They do.
And Cam would be so...
Cam will bring it to you.
Built for Vegas. Him and Verts Mahomes for a long time. That is my dream scenario for the Raiders right now.
So now we're here at the second round, number 40. We talked about wide receiver being a need for this team, but remember, we have T. Higgins on the roster. So T. Higgins is there. We got James Conner there. We have James Daniels as well. We're hitting a home run in free agency, we're hoping. And so that's obviously the outlook. So what are we thinking here? Oh, man, I don't mind Shamar Stewart.
That's an interesting one.
To get another edge rusher in.
Yeah, because if you're not buying into Tyree really turning it on, you need more help up front.
Right. Wyatt Milam is still here.
He'd be a really good add to that offensive line. I think they're gonna. This is a tough one to answer right now because you got to ride out the year and see what Glaze has.
Yeah.
To be fair to him.
Yeah, Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas, is here. If you wanted to upgrade corner, which maybe they will. With Jack Jones sort of struggling for this group.
Like they want to see what they have in DeCamarion Richardson, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that they will. Well,
I really liked his raw ability. So
I think I might go Stewart here then.
I would lean with you.
Stewart's been great.
Genty's gone, right?
Oh, he's got to be way gone.
Okay.
Yeah. Where is Genty? Where did Genty go? 9 overall to the Giants.
Dave Gettleman got back in the chair.
He did indeed. Yes. Tyrone Tracy and Ashton Genty. Fear me. And
Daniel Jones handing them the ball. You love to see it.
Running backs that are left here at number 40. We got RJ Harvey from UCF. Ollie Gordon is still here from Oklahoma. Caleb Johnson is still here from Iowa. I haven't updated this yet with my new offensive ranking, so he's going to be a lot higher. But
this shows we can get a running back later.
Yeah, you could really get a running back later. I think if we're going to get a running back, we should shoot for round 3 with two of those 3 round picks. So
yeah, I'd probably go Shamar in the spot.
Shamar, for anybody that doesn't know, former 5-star, a top 5 overall recruit in the 2022 recruiting class. I mean, he just has a monster build, incredible athlete, and he's really starting to figure out how to win this year. As you can see on the screen, best PFF grades yet of his career, 78.4 overall grade this year, 79.0 grade as a pass rusher against true pass sets. He's got an over 10% pass rush win rate. So look, a little bit of an athletic development kind of a guy, which might give some Raiders fans a little PTSD because that's what Tyree Wilson was, and he hasn't exactly worked out. But I think this is the best bang for your buck here with Shamar Stewart. So let's do that. Let's go with Stewart. They're at 40. Let's see. Because, I'm trying to think. I mean, they got Charles Snowden. They got Caleb on Chase on. That's not really keeping me from drafting Shamar Stewart. I'm going to be honest with you.
No.
So now we're at 69. We got two third-round picks here. They are within 4 picks of each other here at the top of the third round.
We should check out wide receiver again, right?
All right. Why not?
See what depth is there.
Evan Stewart from Oregon is here.
I like Jaden Higgins a lot.
Colorado State. Ooh, Jaden Higgins.
I like Pat Bryant too. But they got size in T. Higgins, so let's keep that in mind.
Yep.
Pat Bryant and Jaden Higgins are size wide receivers. They're kind of guys that can play inside and outside. They're perimeter jump ball guys that could also be power slots. So I love those players. I don't know if they're a need in this spot.
I wouldn't mind Trey Harris here.
I think it's been great again.
I think Trey Harris looks better this year. Last year, I thought he was just an Ole Miss scheme merchant. And this year, he is still who they run their passing attack through, but he does look more diversified in how he gets the football and what he does after the catch. So I definitely would not mind Trey Harris here. I think I like that one quite a bit. What about Jaden Roberts is here at guard, who I like.
But we kind of wanted to target a James Daniels type free agent.
Yeah.
And then they're good on the interior, I think, after that.
Yeah, and then tackle, I mean, maybe a Josh Connerly or Ajani Cornelius, those 2 offensive tackles for Oregon. I could take a flyer on one of them if you were into it. Armand Membu from Missouri, I like. But
I need to watch more of him.
I think he's more of a guard.
Okay.
Although he could be that tackle guard kind of hybrid for you. He is having a good season. 85.3 overall PFF grade this year, 84.6 pass blocking grade, 76.2 on true passing sets. So you can see on the numbers on the right, he doesn't really have a bad game that he has played yet.
What running backs fell?
Let's see. What do we got at running back? Your boy's still here. So Travion Henderson is still here. Kyle Monungai is still here.
I love Monungai.
Caleb Johnson is still here from Iowa. I think it's realistic to think that he might still be available in the third round, even if we're going to bump him up a little bit. But I think we go one of these running backs, and then we make the decision between offensive tackle or wide receiver at 72.
I'm down with that. Picks. Yeah. The tricky thing is, do you want the explosiveness of Henderson, or do you want the smash mouth style of Monungai? Or Caleb Johnson is in play here.
I would take Caleb Johnson if you think it's realistic that he'd still be here in the third round, which
I think so.
Do.
I think so. Yeah, I think Caleb Johnson's a good pick here.
I would go Caleb Johnson then. He's having an awesome year, man.
Even James Conner would be a really a perfect balanced backfield.
I think he is a better version of what they wanted out of Zamir White with the physical attributes and just the overall athlete. So we got Caleb Johnson going 69 and now 72. This is our final pick here. Yeah, I think offensive tackle or wide receiver is where I would look. It's a lot of the same names. It's basically like, how do you feel about I
like Cornelius.
I do too. He's been good. For me, it's Cornelius or Trey Harris. Let's look at their PFF numbers. Let's see where we're at here. Cornelius, not as good of a year as he had last year, but the numbers are still solid. Don't love the fact that his worst game came against NFL competition against Ohio State. I don't love that.
I just don't know if they're desperate at tackle right now. That's my biggest. I had Cornelius as my tackle 11 from summer scouting. I forgot I had Connor really much higher than him. I would probably lean with the wide receiver here, especially how good Harris has been so good this year. Yeah, I'm higher on Higgins personally, but I know you like Harris a lot, and when we kind of blend our rankings together, Harris would probably be the winner here.
I like Higgins. He's just not a great athlete. Like if you want to just play him in the slot and let him be a really savvy wide receiver,
which they can't.
I don't mind that. But like if you're looking at this wide receiver group, if you say that we got T. Higgins, you have Jacoby Myers, who I think could be your slot receiver, and then Trey Tucker, who could also be your slot receiver. He's just the speedier guy. I'd go with Trey Harris. I'd take the flyer on the greater athlete, and I would go with Trey Harris here.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Let's see. PFF gives me a bad grade. I swear. I swear, if they give us a bad grade, I'm gonna find out
who's responsible for
who the lead draft analyst is. What?
Oh my God. D+.
You gotta get it. Come on.
D+. Okay.
All right. To be fair. It's because we're drafting off of what my updated rankings are going to be. And the PFF is sort of looking at the numbers and judging where we drafted them versus where they are on the big board. So ignore the numbers. It's not fine. Or ignore the grades. It's not final yet. Screw PFF, you know?
Never liked him anyway. Oh, man.
There we go. All right. We took Cam Ward in the first round. All right. No, actually, hey, a little bit of a recap here for the Las Vegas Raiders. We think that Antonio Pierce is probably staying as the head coach. I'm really taking a big shot at offensive coordinator. If we can get Todd Monken or Joe Brady to come over in a lateral move, that's the way I would go. But if not, a Dan Mullen, a Chip Kelly, a Dirk Cutter, try to get one of those offensive guys that have had success before, either at college football or at the NFL level. Would love for them to come in at offensive coordinator. We're not trading Max Crosby from this team. We're bringing back a lot of the depth guys that are second contract players that have expiring contracts. We're going out and we're getting T. Higgins at wide receiver. We're taking a shot at James Conner at running back, and we'd love to get one of those interior guys like a James Daniels or a Patrick McCarry or a Zach Martin. We'd love to continue to try to make offensive line the strength. In the draft, then, we complemented that with Cam Ward coming down as the new franchise quarterback, Shamar Stewart to make for one hell of a defensive line if Tyree Wilson can come together. And they got, Christian Wilkins, Shamar Stewart, Tyree Wilson, Max Crosby. That's a dream right there. You're really investing in both of the trenches as well as your franchise quarterback. And then we're getting Caleb Johnson to pair with James Conner, and then Trey Harris to help round out that wide receiver room. Connor, how do you think we did, man? I think we did pretty good.
I think we did really well. This was a fun build. I think this organization isn't as far away as, people on the outside really look at it. But you could say that in the NFL. You get it right at head coach or offensive play caller. You hit on the quarterback. This roster is not barren. And Telesco is an average drafter, right? Like, that's what he is. He's an average drafter. And honestly, if the Raiders had average drafts since 2016, things would look a lot different, but they've been bottom 5 pretty consistently. So there is a roadmap for the Raiders getting this right. And we just showed them it. No, I'm just kidding.
There it is. Again, Trevor and Connor Consulting, hit up our agent. We are willing to run your franchise for you.
Steroids. That's your answer. Take anabolic steroids.
Me and you just show up like Pain and Gain, just like Mark Wahlberg and The Rock in Pain and Gain.
Tuxedos with no sleeves.
That 100%. We would love to hear from you guys. Let us know what you thought of our game plan here and where the Las Vegas Raiders are, whether you're a Raiders fan or not. Best way to tell us in the comments, youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. This is a little bit of a primer, right? We're going to be doing this for a lot of different teams. We're going to have this Fix Your Franchise series. Now it has come to life, and we're going to do it as often as we can. Honestly, I love doing this stuff. I love doing the deep dive stuff. Hopefully you guys continue to love it as well. If you're Raiders fans, please help us out, subscribe to the channel, share it, whatever. It really helps us out. And it makes us know that, hey, you like the deep dive stuff, and we'll continue to do it more. This is a podcast of the people. If you are audio only, hit us up at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rogers on Twitter or Instagram to get your thoughts here on this show. And of course, let us know who you want us to fix next. Tell us in the comments who you want the next team to be for the Fix Your Franchise series. We're going to get to as many as we possibly can here before we really get into draft season around January. And so what you guys say and how often people kind of comment of like, hey, I would love to hear this team, we will absolutely consider it, and we'll see which ones people want to talk about the most. Connor, you got anything else before we get out of here?
I'm excited to keep it rolling. It was great to get this series kicked off. We appreciate everyone so much that's been asking for it, that listens to it, that is just really invested in it, because it's something unique that we get to do, that we put a lot of time into, that we have a lot of fun with. And don't stop asking. Like, if you're a Panthers fan, if you're a Titans fan, whatever it may be, Jets fans are in my mentions all the time. Oh, Lord. It's not even Halloween. Yeah, keep asking. Hey, I want to see how many we can get through this year.
Yeah, I know. We're going to do more Fix Your Franchises than we ever have before, and you guys have the power of deciding which teams we get to. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We'll see you guys next week.